I'm gonna be honest. I was really tempted. Oh my god. My fucking shirt has been on inside out all day. All day. All day. It's been like this all fucking day. I just walked 6 miles all through Target and shit. You know what? I'm just gonna own the sensor fail. Because if I'm being honest, I actually kind of like I like the gradient there. And I'm certainly not going to take my shirt off on a fucking YouTube video. So we're rolling with it. Cool. How's your what a week it has been. It's been a fucking week. So I want to talk about sort of two related videos that were on the class today. The paid objective personality class. And I just found them really, really interesting. It's really cool. There was the one about the IJ box that sort of folds into it. But really what I want to talk about is this idea of latest and loudest in contrast to goals. And like, I just want to get this out of the way. This has been a weird and hard week for a lot of people. It's, in America, especially people of color, in the growth community, in the just everywhere where there's sort of this idea of growth and change and vulnerability. And I just really appreciate that Dave and Shannon recognized that and just made a video about how to process grief. I thought it was beautiful and important and something we should all strive for. So like, thank you for that, truly. And I think that now is a time, as I was watching their video, I was like, how much of this do I agree with? How much of this do I not agree with? Right. And so I just sort of want to talk out my thoughts on this. Because one thing that I've sort of held on to and maintained as being true for a while is like, we live in wild times. Like the things that are expected of us to just function in society, they are turbo intense in a way that like our brains weren't really designed to be able to handle or to be able to really navigate the amount of input that is being thrown at us. Like it just isn't. It's not meant to be able to process that much. And so when you're in a position where it's like everything is coming crashing at you at once, and you're like, I have to navigate the outside world and my inside world, and how does all of this connect and whatever. I think it can be extraordinarily overwhelming. And I think it's important to recognize that like there is a level at which what we are dealing with is in fact novel. And I think that it's novel because it's not like the amount of effort it takes to opt out of it is extraordinarily high. Like I'm just going to say like arbitrarily, 1971, right? If you wanted like just a quiet life, like if you wanted a life that wasn't a lot of chaos, you didn't want to have to contend with new, constantly updating your internal information, there are lots of ways to live in 1971 that were super calm and chill. Like there's lots of ways to accomplish this, right? Because there was no internet, if you lived away from a major metropolitan area, you were like kind of disconnected. Like you had the daily newspaper. And certainly the news was more focused on like middle of the road, right? Think of like the Walter Cronkites. where it was not this cable news aggressively partisan thing, there was a way to partitioning yourself away from just the constant barrage of things to react to. Would escaping from that paradigm was a little easier. And now there are certainly things that you can do to minimize that, but I don't think I think that just I don't want to say in order to exist, but I think that depending on the work that you do, it is increasingly difficult to mitigate that, right? How about this? Even just the act of, let's say you're like, I'm not on social media. I don't want anything to do with that. But even news articles from the Apple News app are written in such a way to inspire an emotional reaction. There's not a lot of reporting the news anymore. And so then you're like, okay, well, I just don't want to be appraised of what's going on in the world. Right? First off, that's a weird choice to make, I think. But also, you then have to surround yourself with other people who are similarly inclined to not be on social media. Everybody has that one friend in their one friend group who's like, I'm not on social media. Cool, good for fucking you. You are still being fed bullshit from social media if all of your friends are also on social media, right? That's right. And that's sort of what we're getting at with this idea of the reaction bag. Our environment is extraordinarily multifaceted. From the sensory clutter to the color of the walls to the people. There are people that I have to stop myself from texting because I know that they're just going to rile me up. They're not good for me. I can't talk to them because they agitate me so much, right? They just bring a lot of negative energy. They bring a lot of futility. They just bring a lot of hostility, all of these things. And I'm like, I don't want that in my space. And they're getting it from being inundated on social media and being surrounded by people who are inundated with social media, right? And so I think that the reason I bring up all that, and again, I say this as somebody who is on Facebook a lot. I'm one of the admins of the main OP group on Facebook. So I'm not obviously I'm not saying social media is bad. You should get off social media. Social media is incredible. Holy shit. But the amount of effort that you need to put in to partition yourself away from the shitty parts of social media, it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger than just oh, well, I guess I'm not going to watch the nightly news. I guess that I'll just have dinner at 6 before, rather than having dinner at, or not turning the TV on during dinner. And then we can, I'm time jumping here, but and then we can go watch Cheers. That pilot episode sure was great. I know we're jumping to 1981. Whatever. Fuck time, right? But it's that sort of idea where before it was a lot easier to partition it. And now I just don't think that is the case. Not saying you can't partition it, not saying you shouldn't make an effort to partition it, but it is just harder. It is harder to partition out the bullshit for exactly the reason that Dave and Shannon are talking about. So I do actually weirdly agree with them when it comes to COVID is just the latest thing that we are all collectively reacting to. And same with the George Floyd police brutality and the riots and the insurgents, whatever you want to call it, right? On some level, on a very, very, very detached level, that is absolutely true. It is indeed one of just many, many things that have happened, will continue to happen. In the words of Patton Oswalt's late wife, you know what? I'm going to find her name because it's a great quote, and he didn't say it, but I want to properly quote. So her name is Michelle McNamara, is the woman who said this. And in her words, life is chaos, be kind. It's all chaos. There's no lattice. There's no framework to the universe. It's all chaos. And the only thing we can do is to be kind. And yes, on a supremely detached level, again, I have no evidence one way or the other as to the lattice work of the universe. But I certainly do know that there is a lot of chaos in life and in the world. And kindness is absolutely the best antidote for that, to getting through the day to day. And, these mass reactions that we're having are really, really important. And, we will continue to have, right? So it's just that our perception of time is shrinking, right? Rather than every year, there's a big event that defines the year, like a big thing, or every decade, every generation, whatever you want to call it. Those cohort, like that timeline's just getting smaller, and it's still like mass reaction to a thing, mass reaction to a thing, mass reaction to a thing, right? It's just happening on a much more compressed scale. And I think that is worth acknowledging. I think it's really important to be like, the fact that it isn't like, okay, well, 2020 is the year of COVID-19, right? And this is the thing, we're all dealing with it. And then, the George Floyd thing. And again, to be clear, this sort of thing happens all the time. This is not like a thing that happened out of nowhere. So of course we're reacting strongly to it. This could have happened with Philando Castile or with Eric Garner. Like, it could have happened, but it didn't, because it just didn't. Right? But so it's sort of, we're dealing with a thing, and then it sort of peaks, and then it sort of gently tapers off, and we can now invest our attention in something else, right? It's like, oh man, we got through that thing. Oh, fuck. Now there is this other thing that is demanding our attention, and that we can actually give our attention to. So there was a woman, her name is Breonna Taylor, and she was shot to death by Louisville Police Department, right? They were serving a no-knock warrant. It was, a horrific, horrific thing that happened. But it happened on March 13th. On March 13th, as a society, we just weren't, that isn't where our headspace was. We weren't able to act, we're like, hang on a second. Yes, who men died. Yes, horrible systemic thing, but like coronavirus, like that is later and louder. Like that is the thing. It is very, very loud. And this woman's untimely, unjust, unfair death just like went under the radar because our brains couldn't handle it. Like there was just a more pressing issue that rightly or no, we believed directly affected our ability to survive. And so we're like, fuck, I gotta like, how am I gonna pay my bills? How am I going to go to the like, do I have enough food for me, for my family? What's gonna happen? Like, and all of that was going on when this woman was shot, and we didn't have the brain space for it. And I think that the reason that George Floyd's death, in addition to being just unimaginably horrific, the reason that we were able to respond to it and are able to respond to it is because I'm not saying that coronavirus is over and that COVID panic is over and that we should just go back to restaurants and movies, but like the bulk of the processing, the bulk of like, how do we exist in this new normal, that kind of crested and has abated. Like, things are starting to open up. People are getting haircuts again. We're not leaping back into it, but like, we don't really think about, like, I went to Target this morning and I see the signs for social distancing, but like, there's no need to really enforce them. And if I slide by somebody in an aisle, it's not like a huge deal because we're all wearing masks and like, oh, I got to do it for a second, but it's fine. Like, there isn't this hypervigilance surrounding coronavirus anymore, which means that our brains are relaxed enough so that when something else happens, we can actually divert our attention to it. And I think it's really important that we understand sort of the peaks and valleys and just like understanding the framework of what this wiring is. And like understanding that, like, again, just thinking like on my very, very small scale, the reason that my old job was so stressful, and it was like, the problems never end. What the shit? Everything is a 4-alarm fire every day. And it's like, as soon as we fix one thing, there's immediately another fire that we have to put out. And I think a big part of that was that, again, partially that was just my brain looking for shit to fix. And ultimately, the reason that I ended up leaving the company and why it stopped being the right fit is that I didn't want to play that game anymore. I was like, I don't want to play the putting out fires. I played it at the beginning because I was like, oh, if I put out enough of these fires, then I don't think I was so naive to think that all fires would go away. But what I was trying to address is like, we don't have a system for putting out fires, and we are not slow dancing in a burning room. Like, the house is on fucking fire and we are running around like maniacs, lighting our hair on fire to prove the existence of the fire that we all fucking see. Like, no, I was like, okay, we got to stop that. If we can just stop lighting our hair on fire for a second, then we can put out the fire. We started to put out fires, and I totally appreciate like the way that just things go. It's like, you put out a fire, another one comes back. You put out another fire. Like, it really is just a series of like and what you want to learn how to do is gently put out fires. That's amazing. If you talk to a lot of parents, one thing that they will tell you is they're like, part of why the first couple of years of being a parent are so unimaginably difficult is that it feels like you're just going from fire to fire to fire to fire to fire to fire because there's this tiny screaming human who like can't take care of itself. It's just shitting all over the place, and it's just a fucking mess, and yelling and vomiting and excrement. It's just a mess. And you're like, holy fuck, oh my God. And then as you get older, oh my God, what is happening? Oh, there's a string. There it is. Right. And over time, what will happen is you'll be like, okay, I'm learning how to teach my kid how to self-soothe a little bit, how to sort of manage what requires screaming, right? I'm gently being more and more okay with a little bit of mess. And, oh, we got to clean up our mess. Let's make it a game, as opposed to there is mess everywhere. It's like, okay, well, hang on a second. We got to clean up the mess in the kitchen, because if we don't clean up the mess in the kitchen, then we can't make dinner. So let's clean up the mess in the kitchen and then slowly start to build a system so that the kitchen doesn't become so messy, right? It's like a gentle process that takes a number of years to figure out. And it's fine. That's just how it works. And I think that this idea of like being a human on the internet, you need to have that same idea. Or honestly, even a human who like is, I bet, look, if you work at the diner in Schitt's Creek, right? Fine. Now the outside world kind of doesn't affect you. Like vendor prices maybe affect you, but like if you run a mom and pop diner, eggs are always going to be eggs. French fries are French fries. It's the same hash brown recipe we've been using for 30 years. You're not going to change fucking hash browns. That's just not what we're doing here, right? Now, once in a while, you might get a thing in where it's like, ooh, you know what? This one guy once ordered tomato slices with a little bit of salt on them. Oh, that's fun, right? And organically, a new thing will pop into your worldview that you can, it's like, oh, this is the new hot thing, the new hot trend. Instead of potatoes, we're gonna get, tomatoes with salt on them, the healthy option, whatever the fuck, right? So like, but barring that, it feels like everybody is a fucking toddler screaming at you 24/7. And that's a hard and exhausting way to live. I don't know what to tell. It's just a hard way to live. And I think that, going back to the whole idea of like the lie and the ghost and the trauma that caused the need for the lie to begin with, I believe that is video 35. If I remember correctly, you should definitely check that one out because I think it does relate to a lot of what we're saying. Yep, episode 35. Nailed it. But what I'm getting at with that is the way to actually address this and the way to actually start to break these toxic reaction bag cycles is to go underneath it and to be like, okay, if I am a reaction bag, then the onus is on me to at least control what I can in terms of what I'm allowing myself to react to. Look, there might be a wrecking ball of chaos that comes in that you're like, fuck, I had no idea, impossible to foresee, whatever, right? But there actually is a lot that you can take responsibility for. There really, really is, in your environment, in yourself. I talk often about Queer Eye and what that show has done for me and why. I mean, I've seen every episode probably at least 3 or 4 times. I love that show. That is my The Office, right? Where people will just like put on an episode of The Office in the background while they're doing something else. It's how they veg out. It's how they whatever, right? That's me with Queer Eye. Side note, new season comes out tomorrow. Very excited. I've heard it's lit as fuck. But part of the reason why I do that and why that is my thing that I choose to put into myself is because I know that I am a reaction bag, right? And so as a result, I need to brainwash myself with the right shit. Because if I don't, then, if I don't have the, Tan, Karamo, Jonathan, Bobby, and Anthony in my head 24/7 to help me combat all of the other bullshit, then the other bullshit wins. Like, I need these dudes in the back of my mind as like my mental soldiers to protect me against shit that I don't want in my space. Right? And that is sort of, again, I don't know enough science to be able to say definitively what is wiring, what isn't wiring. I just haven't seen it. I believe that somewhere it exists, but whatever. But the broad concept is pretty incontrovertible, regardless of how you want to explain it, right? And so I watch the show and I play Animal Crossing and whatever, because I'm like, I need to be brainwashed with that. Like, I need, if I'm gonna be reacting to shit all day long, right? So if I'm not conscious about what I am choosing to react to when I have a choice, now I'm turbo fucked. Because look, sometimes there's going to be stuff that you just don't, I don't know, a burglar breaks in and you can't be like, hang on a second, Tan is about to do the makeover of a lifetime. Like, no. Deal with a fucking burglar in your house. Kick his ass. I don't know. Whatever. But there is a lot of, like, even doing this right now, I have a choice. I have agency. I have feelings. I want to react. Like right now, this is sort of I want to react to myself, process extrovertedly, build up the YouTube channel and engage with the tribes, people, whatever. Right? Like I'm planting these seeds for future reactions, if you want to think of it that way, right? So I need to be really cognizant about what I'm putting out there because I know that I'm going to be reacting to it down the line. We talk about karma. This is a kind of karma. If I put out content that is authentic, that I believe in, that is, for me, it's all about love and grace and giving people the benefit of the doubt and gentleness and healing and holding yourself to a high standard and, all of these values that I hold very dear to myself. If that doesn't resonate with somebody, if you're like a toxic shitlord and you watch my video, you're just not gonna care. You're gonna be like, oh, I don't like it. I'm going to find something else. And you might make a trolly comment or two, and then you'll go away. Or if you don't go away, I'll just block you because I don't need you in my fucking life. Go bye. Don't watch my movies. But that's what I'm talking about. Is you really do have there are absolutely things over which you have control, 100%. And so I think that this idea of I think we get into tricky territory when we start talking about do we have free will and whatever, because I think that however we are wired in the moment, we may be we are reacting subconsciously in that moment, but there is a lot of work that we can do to make sure that our impulsive reactions are good and warm and loving and open-hearted and protecting the defenseless and things like that. We do have agency regarding our wiring, right? And how we choose to work on different emotional muscles. I brought up this analogy before, but there is in Westworld, if anybody has seen Westworld, the people who are the hosts, right? The robots, whatever. The way that they are programmed, literally programmed like a computer program, is that when you show them a picture of the outside world, it doesn't register to them. It's not even like a white piece of paper. It just doesn't look like anything. And that's sort of how I talk about my alcoholism and why I'm able to go to parties, be around drinking. What's up, Demon Haunted Playground? How you doing? It's why I'm able to like go to parties, and generally I can think of 2 instances when I was like, I can't be around this amount of alcohol. One of them was very shortly after I made the decision to get sober. It was a big open bar. It brought up a lot of feelings about other times I'd been in similar situations. And I was like, oh, I just need to leave. Like I cannot be here because I'm going to make a very, very bad decision if I stick around for longer. And it was a woman. She was running for some union position, I think. And I remember I went over to her and I showed up, I, mingled, whatever, talked a little bit. And I could feel myself like getting hot and like wanting a drink. I was like, oh, I need to leave. And I went to the host and I was like, thank you so much. I support you deeply. I can't be here right now because if I do, I'm going to drink and I can't drink. And she was like, I totally get it. Thank you for coming. Please go away. Right. The other time was I was in Ireland with some friends of mine, and we went to the Guinness factory. Guinness the beer. It was amazing. Oh my God. If you are in Ireland, if you ever go to Ireland and go to Dublin and go to the Guinness factory, just plan on spending a good 45 minutes in the Cooper area, in the barrel making area. It is the coolest fucking thing. I'm not going to say in Ireland, Cliffs of Moher, Hachimachi, the Cliffs of Moher. But like in Dublin, like that is the highlight of Dublin for me. And a randomly really good ramen restaurant whose name I can't remember. But like there was a room in there where you're supposed to like taste the beer and you get the smell of the hops, and it's like a very sensory experience. And I remember I walked in, and I'd been a year sober at this time, and I turned to my friends and I was like, guys, I need to leave. I cannot be in a room built around smelling and tasting alcohol. I need to just leave. And so I left. And that's what I mean when you have these, like, when we talk about free will, like, I don't know, man. Leaving felt like a very active choice, right? And I think that the narrative of that being an active choice is a more helpful narrative than saying, well, you had done work to make it so that that was a natural response, and you didn't actually have control over that in the moment because you rewired yourself to do that. Maybe, I don't know, man. I think it's important to find agency in our life, because what it will let you do is it will, when you use this sword properly, it will let you go, holy shit. I was able to reprogram my brain when it comes to alcohol. Like, I look at alcohol on the shelves or at a party or I go to a bar, and like, it just doesn't look like anything. Like, it doesn't, my brain does not register it as a thing. And say, like, similarly, I talked to, there's the James Clear thing about like, building something around your identity makes it a lot, that makes it stick. And where it's just like, I am the kind of person who does not drink. I am someone who does not eat grain, right? Whatever the thing may be. I don't know how to make a case for us not having free will if we can very clearly reprogram ourselves. I just don't know. In their video, they talk about like, 97, we're 97% elephant, 3% baby on top. I think that baby's really important. I think the fact that it isn't 100% is absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical because it's that baby on top. My body wanted to drink, right? But the baby on top, that felt like a baby on top moment where it was like, no, this is not a thing we do. You need to extricate yourself from this situation so that you don't do something stupid. And so I did. I left. And that is the thing, Dave talks about, like, when he has his tidal waves or the sensory, whatever, when he's like, he can catch his FI. He's like, my FI locked onto this. Oh, wait, right. This is the thing where my FI locks onto it and I get really attached and I got to remember, okay, this is what I do to not get attached. Great, cool. Eventually that becomes an automatic process. There is a lot of that process where it feels really clunky. And you eventually want to get it to a point where you're not making these conscious decisions to behave in a healthy, productive, fruitful, whatever way. But like, when you are first starting, I think it does feel like a very, very active choice that you have to make, which means I think that when we start to get into the conversation of like, are we just programming? Do we have free will? I think that conversation gets very convoluted very quickly once you start this journey and this process of seeing yourself clearly, seeing the world from multiple perspectives. I was talking to a very good friend, probably my oldest friend. This person means so much to me, and I had to unfollow them on all of my social medias. And like, we haven't actually talked a lot lately. And this is a person who has been in my life for years. Like, and we just don't, like, I can't be in their atmosphere. Because what happens is they are very much in the sort of reaction bag mindset, and they are like, where they choose to direct their attention, it's not in any sort of like, it's sort of in a long-term goal way, but like, they live in a very angry space and they invest in whoever is screaming at them. That is who gets their attention. The biggest thing, I think, for me with the coronavirus and everything, moving into the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, part of why I feel like I'm able to navigate this and not just be completely submerged is because I'm able to go, I have enough practice now going, okay, you get my attention for this amount of time. I will be here and I will be present with you and your circumstance for this amount of time. Great. Now I'm going to be present with you in this circumstance for this amount of time, and you in this circumstance. And I'm going to take some time for myself. And now I'm going to go grocery shopping. And now I'm going to do my budget. And now I'm going to, be here for this other person who needs to have a conversation about this. And now I'm going to do some listening. And now I'm going to do some speaking. Like, I have learned over the years how to navigate this and how to really live in more of a balance, so that it isn't just latest and loudest yelling at me. And to bring it around to this idea of the goals, sort of what I'm like, oh, right, because I'm very much in Dave's position of like, I know you're right, but I don't know how or why. And what I'm starting to realize is like, with this, when you set a goal, you give yourself something else to focus on besides latest and loudest. And it doesn't mean that you're ignoring the existence of latest and loudest. And it doesn't mean that you will eventually not go back to something, right? One of my big things, and one of the things that I sometimes catch flack for, but I'm very okay with that, is I do not react right away whenever there is a crisis. I just don't. I never have. I hope I never will. With all the coronavirus stuff, right? So LA got hit pretty hard. All of California got hit, especially San Francisco, certainly New York, et cetera, right? And people knew that the coronavirus was gonna be a big deal, potentially, for a while, right? We saw what happened in Italy. We didn't have a ton of data, but like, and I know that in retrospect, like now, like retroactively, we know that people hid information and like didn't act as quickly as they could have. But, you know, for me, I was like, okay, I know that this is a thing that is happening. And it's not that I wanted to bury my head in the sand for a sake of normalcy. It was that, okay, I hear this thing that is yelling at me. Okay, let me see if this goes away. Right? Because it feels like latest and loudest. It feels like latest and loudest. So I need to make sure that it actually demands my attention and that it's actually going to affect what I do, how I behave, if it's going to, you know, screw over me and my fellow humans in the long run if I don't pay attention to this. And then once, you know, on March 11th, then it was like, okay, great. This is a thing we have to do. Like, this happens to be the latest and loudest, and it's also really fucking important that I pay attention to it. Because if I don't pay attention to it now, it is only going to get worse if I don't pay attention. And that's always what I'm looking for. And that's sort of what I want to leave you on. And also to hear your thoughts on the matter as well. Like, one thing that has served me so well is to not react to something until I am reasonably certain that it's only going to get worse if I don't. Because there's a lot of shit that will just like come into my periphery and then it'll zoom by. And I'll be like, wow, I am so glad I didn't invest a lot of emotional energy into that because that did not deserve my attention. Right? And then if something is like looming in the distance and is slowly creeping closer, like, all right, I see you. I don't have to deal with you yet. But like, if you don't back up soon, then I am going to have to deal with you. Oh, wow, you're really not backing up. All right. I guess I'm going to deal with you. That's what I think we want to go for, right? It is not burying your head in the sand at all. I would never advocate that. But I do advocate being cognizant of what you give your attention to. And there's that, you know, the lone survivor, right? The metaphor. I mean, for him, it was very sensory real, but like, put a rock in front of you and I'm going to crawl to that rock, right? I'm going to set these goals. And that lets you put on those blinders just temporarily, right? And it gives you, it sort of forces that mechanism of latest and loudest to not, you know, be firing on autopilot and to be able to like, it's not that you're necessarily muting it, but you're not indulging it and you're not giving into it and you're not like overly investing in this thing that is yelling at you that may or may not go away. Look, if you are on a business call and it's an important deal and your kid is screaming at you, then like, okay, fine. Cause like, scream, right? And then it's like, I can't get this thing done with you doing your, you know, with you screaming at me. I'm going to soothe you for a second. I'm going to finish this. And then I'm going to give you I'm going to give you my attention. Okay, great. Do the thing. You good. If you need me, you can just come in and ask. You can tap me on the foot, you know, tap me on the leg. You don't need to scream. It's totally fine. We're all fine. And then over time, the kid will learn, hey, screaming doesn't work. Oh, fuck. Huh. Maybe if I behave in this other way, then that is going to, oh, when I tap dad on the leg, then he's a lot nicer to me. Maybe I should just keep like tapping him on the leg and then he won't yell at me. Huh. Cool. That works. You kind of like reprogrammed your kid in a way because you've rewarded a certain behavior. And I think that when we're talking about us being reaction bags, being cognizant of you know, there's going to be stuff that we don't have a choice but to react to. Shit's just going to happen in life. By being a human who goes out into the world, we're going to be dealing with shit, right? But we have I guess I'll end on this. There's a great analogy in Kung Fu Panda, one of my all-time favorite movies. And it's a conversation between Shifu and Oogway, right? The little red panda and the wise old tortoise. And the conversation is like, I have agency over where I plant, like, you know, if I have a peach seed, I can choose when to harvest the peach tree. I can choose where I plant it. I can be cognizant of how much I water it. And then Oogway says, yes, but you can't, no matter how much you might wish it to be an apple tree or a pear tree, it will always be a peach tree. And you can't control how long it's going to take to grow. Like, those are things that you don't have control over. And I think that both are right. And I think that it's important to recognize what we have agency over, what we don't have agency over, and understanding that, okay, if we are designed to be reaction bags, then I want to make goddamn sure that I am reacting to as much positive, healthy nourishment as I can, so that when I do have to deal with bullshit, I don't go through the world feeling like it is nothing but bullshit, because I've already made the choice preemptively to nourish myself, to nourish my mind, and to rewire myself to respond more positively and with more emotional investment into the things that nourish me compared to the things that don't. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with me. I appreciate that in this conversation of choosing what you nourish yourself with, that you have chosen to nourish yourself with these videos. I do not take this for granted. I hope that I am providing you nourishing content. That is my only goal. I love doing this stuff. I think it's important that we all have this conversation about what we choose to allow into our atmosphere. And I'm appreciative that you've let me into yours. All right. Have a good one. Bye. Really should have changed my shirt.